Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Don Linebaugh, and I'm the Dean of the School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, Maryland's Built Environment School. We offer interdisciplinary education, preparing our graduates to collaborate across disciplinary boundaries to solve society's big problems. Our collaborative, interdisciplinary approach makes us winners in national and international competitions, such as the Department of Energy Solar Decathlon, the ULI Hines competition in urban design, the HUD, Housing and Urban Development Innovation and Affordable Housing competition, Architect Magazine Studio Prize, ACSA Timber in the City competition, and many, many more. Our school is doing innovative work in communities across our state and region, and is doing innovative work across our state and region to create better, stronger, and more equitable communities for everyone. And I hope you will seriously consider joining us in that effort. Now, I want to introduce Dana Cobran, who is our Recruitment and Admissions Coordinator, who will host the rest of the webinar. And I am going to excuse myself for another appointment at this time, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Again, I am Dana Cobran, the Recruitment and Admissions Coordinator. Welcome to the Graduate Recruitment Webinar, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in today, especially at 12 p.m. during lunchtime, to listen, to hear, and to learn more from Maryland Built Environment School. So I'm going to be the moderator of the two panels today, and I'm just going to explain really quickly what we're going to be doing. First, we're going to have the program director panel. As you can see, the lovely people right next to me, they're program directors for all the different programs at our school, and they're going to go a little bit more into details based on the questions we're asking about admissions, recruitment, our programs, and more. Next, at 12:30, we'll be having a second panel of graduate students and alumni who will be talking about their experiences in the program here. So you're going to hear both sides. You're going to hear from the program directors about admissions, and you're going to hear from current and alumni students that have been in the program. After 20 minutes of the two questions, there's going to be a live question and answer section. If you can see the chat box in your corner of your computer, or if you're calling in, feel free to ask us whatever questions you may have. So to begin, all the lovely people near me, I'm going to ask, can you please introduce yourself with your name, your title, and your academic program? Let's start.
Okay. I'm Paula Nasta. I am the doctoral assistant to the director of the Historic Preservation Program. So I am not Dennis Pogue, our director, but I am here in his stead.
Hi everyone, I'm Casey Dawkins, director of the Urban Studies and Planning Program and the PhD program in Urban and Regional Planning and Design.
Good morning. I'm Maria Day Marshall, and I am director of the Real Estate Development Program at the University of Maryland.
Hi, and thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Kelly. I'm the director of the architecture program here at the School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation.
Now that you've all been introduced, I'm going to start with the first question. So what are the strengths of your program, and what other disciplines do you collaborate with our dual degrees? Good start.
Okay. Well, our Historic Preservation Program here at Maryland is a very well-rounded program. We offer coursework and experience in everything from policy to actual technology type activities and field work. We have 6 dual degrees. We have a dual degree with architecture, with real estate development, with planning. We also have a dual degree with applied anthropology, one with the history department, and one with the landscape architecture department. So you can get 2 master's degrees in a little more than the time you would get one regular historic preservation degree.
Thank you. I would say interdisciplinary collaboration is a strength of our program. We collaborate with all of the programs in the room that you see represented. We collaborate with landscape architecture and law. And the awards that Dean Linebaugh mentioned were really only possible to win those through these collaborations. So I think we've really taken advantage of those collaborations and put together a nice set of dual degree options as well. The interdisciplinary emphasis also is reflected in our curriculum. So we have political science, sociology, economics, all of these are infused within our curriculum. So we have it sort of within the curriculum itself. And then finally, I would simply say that we have an accredited program, an accredited planning program by the Planning Accreditation Board, which ensures a certain level of quality for the education that you receive. And finally, I would have to say that this, location, this is an exciting region to study community planning. We set astride 2 vibrant metropolitan areas in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and in Baltimore. And we sort of take advantage of the position there and the vibrancy of those 2 locations to bring that into the classroom for very collaborative projects, studio projects, and so on.
My program is the Real Estate Development Program. And the nice thing about our program is that it is comprehensive and multidisciplinary. It teaches you everything about the real estate development program and process, from acquisition and pre-development all the way through and including asset and property management. It is very interdisciplinary. We teach all types of courses, including commercial leasing and development law and development finance. And it's very different from some of the other programs, graduate programs across the country, in that many of those programs are based in the business schools. And so they tend to focus on real estate finance instead of the entire real estate development process. Some of the other strengths are that we teach to our students to develop to the quadruple bottom line. And so that means that we're socially responsible, financially viable, environmentally respectful, and we teach beautiful and sustainable design. We also do site visits, we have guest lectures, we have participate in interdisciplinary competitions. Our students are allowed to go to all kinds of different conferences, and we allow our students to have trade association memberships. And so we are out interacting with industry professionals and out on the site so that you can feel real estate development.
Again, I'm Brian Kelly, and the architecture program is the oldest and the largest of the programs in the school. And one of the things I can say to echo what Casey had said before about location, the Washington-Baltimore region is perhaps one of the most dynamic areas to practice architecture in the country. Virtually every major global firm has representation here, so it's quite a great market to come to participate in. Our students are highly sought after. Virtually every thesis class produces too few students for the market. We have people banging on our doors constantly. And one of the reasons for that is that I think that we provide a wonderful education for our graduates. We like to say that our graduates graduate from here with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground simultaneously. They are able to imagine things that provide us with visions of a great future, but they also have the competencies that carry them along very far in practice and in business. We have a very strong sustainability agenda, as was mentioned earlier on by the Dean. Our incredible wins in things like the ULI Hines competition, which we've done collaboratively, the Solar Decathlon collaboratively. Those things really sort of talk about the school's commitment to sustainability, and the programs. The architecture program is grounded in that at 2 scales, at 2 opposite ends of the scale. We have a real sincere interest in building craft and building buildings that are sustainable for the future. And we also have an interest in sustainable urbanism and that whole spectrum of things in between. And so for us, it's really important to understand this idea of sustainability as something that architects live and breathe in their daily practice. We have two major paths to the Master of Architecture, which is our accredited degree. There's the Path A path, which is a 4-semester, 60-credit degree path that is generally tailored for people with a background with a Bachelor of Science in Architecture or its equivalent. And then we have a 3.5-year, 7-semester program for people with a baccalaureate in any field. And then just to be sure of everything, if you have a BA or if you have a BS in environmental design, we work with you to make sure that you get the most credit possible for your undergraduate education. The last bit I'd like to say, so it's already been said, particularly for architects, one of the unique things that we offer here at Maryland is the ability to partner with the programs around this table to get a dual degree in architecture and historic preservation so that you can take buildings that are already existing, the most sustainable buildings, as our alum Carl Elefante likes to say, and you can become an expert in both of these disciplines simultaneously. The same is true of real estate and planning, and not all schools offer that. And we're all within the same umbrella, within the same School of Architecture. So it's a great thing for you if you choose Maryland. You'll have this opportunity to move between these disciplines and really glean an understanding of how people practice in an interdisciplinary context.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your responses. For the second question, so we kind of just talked about academic strengths and programs, but now I want to delve a little bit into other things, opportunities outside of academics and academic programs. So for the second question, what opportunities does the school offer that get students out of the classroom and engage with communities nearby at home and abroad?
Okay, well, just to kind of double back on something Casey and Brian and Maria all said, it is a very active area that we live in, being so close to DC and Annapolis. So one of the things that we offer to students is the opportunity to participate in Capitol Hill Day, whether it's at the state capitol or the national capitol level, so they can participate in that. We also have, as Brian mentioned, with the architecture program, more opportunities than we have students graduating. We also have a problem of more offered internships than we have students to give internships to. So there's lots of opportunity for that. The students have the opportunity to go study abroad at a place called the Kipling Estate in York, England. That's a every other summer program. There's also a program with Eckley Miners Village in Northeast Pennsylvania where students get to do anthropology, archaeology, and preservation all together and some building documentation. We have selective classes, some elective classes over the years at different locations in Maryland, whether it's the Cremona Plantation or another plantation or park in the area. We also have a program here at Maryland called PALS, which is partnership in action and leadership and sustainability. And that allows us to work with state agencies in Maryland to do different programs. So planning has some programs that they do, architecture, real estate, they all have coursework that they do through that program with local states. Historic preservation also participates in that. And so that gives us the opportunity to work with local communities to help them develop programs or research that works for them. And then we also go to lots of conferences. So we go to conferences, everything from planning conferences to preservation conferences to architecture conferences. So students have the opportunity to go to those through scholarship and some additional funding through the university in the program. So many, many opportunities.
I guess what I would say is that we actually require students to get out of the classroom. And you can't really become a community planner without engaging with community. And so that's sort of central and part and parcel to becoming a community planner. So we require students to do a community planning studio to actually be involved in the creation of a community plan. We require students to be interns for a semester. And so we provide students with opportunities to become involved in the profession as part of the curriculum. And we actually have the same problem that Paula mentioned. We have more internship opportunities than we have students to take them. So I mean, another advantage of this region is it's such a rich region for employment as planners. And so we're always trying to find new opportunities for both interns and for the graduates of the program. One other thing I would mention for the community planning program, which is also a benefit for the PhD program, is our affiliation with the National Center for Smart Growth, which is a research center here for the school, and the Environmental Finance Center, which is also another research center. These centers provide employment to our students as researchers or as teaching assistants if there's a class associated with the projects. So students really get involved in both sort of pure research that these centers do, as well as applied research projects that go into the community and do various applied applications of the projects. The final thing I would mention, I would just reinforce the importance of the PALS program, particularly for the planning program, which has really incorporated PALS as an integral part of our community planning studio and a variety of other courses that also rely on that structure. And it's really great because the PALS staff provides a sort of a structure for engaging with communities around concrete problems and needs that they have in a way that brings that back to the University of Maryland, structured around courses that I think benefit both the students and the community that they're engaged with. So it's, community engagement is a very important part of the plan.
Thank you, Casey. I think the unique thing about the real estate development program is that all of our courses are taught by industry professionals. And so they are practicing every day during the day at their day job. And then they come out here in the evening and they teach courses, and they bring all that they've learned in their practice to our students. They are also required to have guest lecturers, people who are practicing in the industry every day. And again, they bring their real world experience into the classroom. Our students also are required to do site visits. We take our students to some of the most exciting developments in the region, and there are many. You've heard about the location of the school gives an opportunity for us to really enhance this experience with them. We also provide the students an opportunity to attend many conferences, the Urban Land Institute, the NAIOP conferences, HUD conferences. These are all trade associations that provide a unique experience for our students. The real estate development program also has dual degrees with architecture, planning, preservation, and the business schools. And because of our relationship with these other disciplines, where our students are able to participate in competitions and have excelled. We have a really good record of doing well in these competitions. The big daddy of them all being the Urban Land Institute competition that we've been in the final four 6 times, and we've won it twice. We won the HUD student competition twice last year and this year. And it's because of our interdisciplinary platform that we're able to excel in these competitions. All of our students are required to do a capstone at the end of their coursework, which means that they do a feasibility study and develop a development proposal for a real world site that's commissioned usually by a governmental entity or a developer. And they go in and they look at the zoning and entitlement issues. They look at the finance issues. They look at the construction issues and put together a report to provide to those governmental entities or to the developer to use as they develop development plans for the site. We also work with PALS, as do the other disciplines. And again, this gives our students the opportunity to really engage with the community and to engage with governmental entities to provide a really, really nice proposal for a site. And I think those are some of the strengths that we have in the real estate development program.
I don't know where to begin. This is, so much has been said, and there is actually so many things that you can discover here at the school that are of great advantage. In architecture, one of the gemstone aspects of the program is our integrated design studio. It's won all kinds of national and international accord. It became the model for the National Architectural Accrediting Board's requirement for integrative design in architectural curriculum nationally. So it is a very important studio and continues to engage projects throughout the state and in various ways. Last year, students worked on a project for design of a Chesapeake Bay Study Center for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and they actually filed a report back to that. They did a lot of visiting of the site in the Chesapeake Bay. This year, they're working on a design for a visitor center to put the Pope Leahy House, which is a local Usonian house by Frank Lloyd Wright, located in Northern Virginia. The students have the opportunity as well to engage in a program that's called the Internship Scholarship Program, a kind of unique program where students get a summer internship at a major firm in the DC, Baltimore area. They work in a paid internship over the course of the summer, and then they are given a scholarship when they return to school in order to help them complete their education. And sometimes students will use some of that scholarship money to go to travel to find sites for thesis projects. And a thesis project is one of the things that gets people out and about. They scour locations nationally or internationally for the locations of their thesis projects. Another thing that is a yearly thing that takes place in the school that's quite remarkable is the Key Distinguished Professor Program. This year, Zena Howard, who is a principal with Perkins and Will out of Charlotte, North Carolina, she was the principal behind the National Museum of African American History and Culture. She took students to a behind-the-scenes tour of that incredible building that's part of the Smithsonian in downtown DC. One of our alums, Corin Sharples, will be receiving a group of our students next week at her offices in New York. Corin Sharples is a partner in the firm of Sharp Architects. There's an opportunity to study abroad in Florence for a semester or to do 6 or 3 week summer programs in the summer to various locations internationally. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We can keep going on, but we're getting the signal that we're just about out of time, aren't we?
Yes.
So there we go. 2 questions. We filled up that much time.
Yep. So first of all, to all the program directors here, thank you so much for giving us honestly a plethora of information. You heard about all the opportunities, and now we're going to move to the live Q&A session. So for Rachel, thank you so much for typing in your question already. You actually beat me to the punch. For everybody else watching, in addition to Rachel, feel free to type in questions because from now until 12:30, you can actually ask any or all the program directors. We're going to start with Rachel's question, but anybody else feel free to type in anything you're thinking about in terms of admissions, the program. So for everybody else, in case you can't see the chat box, the question that was asked by Rachel is, for the PhD program, have you had mid-career students in the program in the past and recent memory? And what are 3 key attributes that make a student likely to succeed in the PhD program?
That sounds like it's meant for me.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly we do have mid-career. One of the things that's unique about both our students that come into the program and that graduate from the program, this region is replete with research opportunities outside of academia. So we actually have quite a few students who either came into the PhD program because they're working in a federal agency or a nonprofit. And then often they continue doing that after they graduate. So I would say certainly, that's a career path that many have chosen. We actually have some esteemed alumni that work in some of the nonprofits in the region. One of our alums is director of research at AARP, for example. Another works for the Real Estate Association doing research in California. And then we have several in academia. So there's sort of multiple paths there. What was the second part of that question?
What are 3 key attributes that make a student likely to succeed in the PhD program here?
What's a good application? That's sort of hard to say. I think the first thing that's really important, that's often underemphasized, is emphasize the fit between what your research is, or what you intend for your research to be, and our faculty's expertise. You know, I mean, we have a very interdisciplinary PhD program that draws on the strengths of the entire school. But we do not cover everything. So we look for students that have a nice synergy between, the faculty's expertise and the research projects that you want to pursue. So I think that's probably number one. Number two, I think there's sort of typical things that qualify any graduate student for a higher study. Our students tend to be among those who have the best grades and get the best GRE scores, although that's often, that's obviously not the only thing that we're looking for. And then the final thing I would say is that, we're really looking for students that have already begun to think in terms of research questions. Mm-hmm. They look at the world in terms of potential research questions, and they, in their personal statement, will convey that. What things are, it's not simply what are you interested in, but sort of what do you want to study in terms of a question, how do you see you fitting into that, and how do you envision engaging in a broader conversation around some topics. I think those are probably my top.
I just want to piggyback on the question. All of our programs actually benefit greatly from people that come from mid-career backgrounds. So there are people, I've had people do an entire career at NASA, and then they were rocket scientists, and they came and did architecture. Lawyers and medical doctors and people from all walks of life have come to us, and so it's if you find yourself in that kind of situation, you're not going to be an oddball. You'll find others just like you.
Awesome. So we actually have 2 other questions, but due to time, I think I'm going to cap it to 1. But I will say, if you can't think of your question now, after the last question, I'm going to give contact information for you who you can email, and you will get a response. So for the final question for the program director panel, from Maha, what are some research opportunities available for graduate students to assist faculty with? And any of you, feel free to answer.
Well, in preservation, we have students working on the Cremona site, which is, like I said earlier, a plantation site in Southern Maryland. There's so many. I'm trying to think of where to begin. We have students working with Dr. Leinbaugh on some research at a plantation called Kippax Plantation. And then I know in some of the other programs, Smart Growth just sent me a list the other day of some research projects they have. And so they're doing several research projects on transportation. And so they're looking for students to help them research those. So they kind of a broad range.
It varies from year to year, and
Yes.
It varies from in terms of faculty. Some faculty members have funding resources to bring people in to help them. I just got back from Oxford, UK, where I gave a lecture on the architecture of Raphael, and unfortunately most of Raphael's buildings and the portions of the cities that they were built in have been torn down, and I worked with a group of graduate students to rebuild those portions of the cities and digitally rebuild the buildings so that we could imagine 500 years ago what that part of Rome looked like. There's faculty members that are working with VR and trying to ascertain how the brain processes information from VR equipment. There's another faculty member that's looking at sustainable skins for buildings, and she's working with a group of people to take measurements and to try to devise ways in which building the materials that we use in the exterior cladding of buildings can be more productive towards a sustainable environment. But it goes on, a lot of different opportunities.
One of the things that I forgot to mention was that we have the Colvin Institute for Real Estate Development that's connected to the real estate development. It was endowed by John Colvin, a Baltimore-based developer who wanted to link real estate education with industry. It provides student enhancements for the master's program. It's our industry outreach arm, but it also funds research. And so One of the things that the National Center for Smart Growth has been working on is the Purple Line corridor, and trying to determine what affordable housing and small businesses will be displaced by the Purple Line that is going to be running right through the campus. The Colvin Institute funded a research project, as well as a housing tool to be used by the university, the Montgomery County, and Prince George's County to determine where affordable housing is along the corridor and where small businesses are along the corridor.
Yeah, you stole mine. I was going to mention the Purple Line, which is a really sort of, I feel like every other planning studio has some connection to the Purple Line. It's been both a big project. There's planning students have been involved in it. It will continue to be so as well. I guess one other thing I would sort of throw into the mix is that for the NCSG, their projects in the National Center for Smart Growth, they've engaged in several projects around the topic of smart cities. So it's simply using technology to make places better is sort of one way of putting it. But they've involved themselves in a variety of projects in Baltimore, where they expanded broadband within a community there and sort of engaged the community through that expanded network. Here on campus, there's a project that involves stormwater management technology around campus, as well as sort of planning for where electric vehicles will be placed in the region. And that's sort of a new topic area, but it's also been sort of the organizing principle for a dual degree that we're developing with the School of Information Management, or the iSchool, that will hopefully be online within the next year or so, in addition to a new dual degree with public health. So we're sort of expanding our dual degree offerings as a result of some of those collaborations. So,
and that goes back to the region too, is that the region is really rich in 3 urban centers: Annapolis, ostensibly an 18th century city that provides opportunities to think about what contemporary architecture, urbanism, preservation, real estate development means in that context. Baltimore, now a post-industrial city, and has all the pains of many cities across the globe. And Washington, D.C., a city that's experiencing enormous growth at the moment, and the challenges of that growth. And we're all involved in that. And it's very interesting to see people picking up these topics and using them, not only in research that the individual faculty might be doing, but actually in the context of classwork, that's coursework that's done in studios and in courses that students take.
Awesome. So I want to thank all of our program directors here for taking the time out of their day, because I know it technically is lunchtime at 12:30. We really appreciate your help. I know there are still questions, so thank you so much. But what I'm going to do is right now, I'm going to type in the email that you can send those questions to. So please email your questions if we did not get them. I'm typing it right now. arch-admissions@umd.edu. And please put in the subject line webinar question. Based on that email, it will either get answered or it will get triaged and connected to the program director that you're looking for. Thank you so much, program directors. For those of you tuning in, I'm going to go bring in the graduate students and alumni. Stay tuned for about 30 seconds. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As long as you can be seen by the camera, you can sit wherever. Take a seat.
Sit right here. Sit on the other side.
Thank you so much for bearing that about a minute transition with me. I really appreciate it for those of you tuned in. For those of you who may have missed the first part or just come in, again, my name is Dana Coburn. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm the Admissions and Recruitment Coordinator for the School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. This is the Graduate Recruitment Webinar, and we are moving to the Graduate Students and Alumni panel. So I'm going to have to start. Everybody introduce themselves. Can you please introduce your name? Signify whether you are an alumni or a current student, and what programs you're either in process of working on or graduated with.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Jockel. I am a 5th semester graduate student in the dual degree major of Historic Preservation and Anthropology.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Finio. I'm an alumni of the Masters in Community Planning program, but I'm also a PhD student here currently.
Hi, I'm Casey Huntington. I am graduating this semester with the Master of Architecture and Master of Real Estate Development.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Nichols. I'm also in the Masters of Architecture and Real Estate Development dual degree program, and this is also my last semester.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. As you can see, we have a variety of backgrounds here, and they're all coming from, I guess, different aspects of life, different programs. So I want to start with the first question. Either while you were here or currently, did you participate in any education abroad trips and or design competitions? And if you did, how did they expand your career preparation?
Well, I did not. I would have liked to have gone to the study abroad in England with Professor Dennis Pogg, but as the dual degree, I just had a lot of other stuff. I did an internship program, so that was in lieu of.
I'm going to widen this question a little bit because I realize it's very two narrow things.
Yeah.
Opportunities outside of academics. So the goal of this question was to give examples of 2 opportunities outside of academia, but if there's anything you participated in locally in a community abroad, feel free to share and how it expanded you.
Okay, well, in that case, actually, my dual degree program requires an internship. So I was able to work in my field and by trade, I'm a historical archaeologist. So I was able to gain experience in that while also using the skills I learned in historic preservation to kind of broaden what outside of historical archaeology, but still related, like I worked as an architectural historian for my internship.
So I didn't get a chance to study abroad, partly because I came later in the year after working, and I also had a family, so that wasn't really on the. But I did get the opportunity to take my urban planning stuff outside of academia. So, for example, I worked committee in the city of Tacoma Park, Maryland, where I lived. Mayor had a committee appointed for studying safe roadways in the city. So I volunteered on that for about 18 months. And I also had opportunities for internships and collaborative work through the National Center for Smart Growth campus. And some of that has extended to working with people outside of the work environment to advance urban planning mission broadly across the state of Maryland.
So I've done 3 of these things. So I did the HUD competition last year, and our team won the HUD competition, so that was very exciting. That was probably one of the best experiences of the graduate program so far. Working with that team was really, really great. You have to have 3 different disciplines represented, so it's super interdisciplinary. And we got to present at HUD, and we won, and Ben Carson gave us that award, so it was a pretty great experience. And then I also did the St. Petersburg, Russia study abroad program, and that also was another very, very memorable experience. So that study abroad was very unique in that it wasn't as much of a tour like a lot of the other architecture study abroads. And this, we partnered with the St. Petersburg State University and did an urban design studio there. And so that was a really unique experience because you actually got to work with the Russian students there, and it was very immersed in the culture. So that was amazing. I definitely would recommend people going on that trip. I think they're holding it again this coming semester, maybe. And then I also did an internship with Torty Gallus and Partners which was awarded through a competition with the school. So another great experience.
So I have not participated in a competition, nor did I go abroad during graduate studies. I went abroad when I was here for undergrad. But one thing I will talk about is the real estate development program. Essentially, every course has a field trip, or what they call a field trip, and it's usually pretty local to a development project that the professor might have contacts with. And I think that's one of the neat aspects of the real estate development program because you kind of get to be outside of the classroom and learn about different topics, whether it be like finance. You can talk to like the actual developer on site about like how they finance the project, or if it's a planning class, they might talk about the way they worked with the planners of the local jurisdiction for that development, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much for sharing. So for the second question, and this is something that kind of applies to everybody in a way, how has your interdisciplinary education or receiving a dual degree or doing certificates shaped your career?
Okay, well, as in the dual degree anthropology and historic preservation, traditionally archaeologists go for anthropology in a traditional master's, but this master's dual degree program really exposed me to a much wider breadth of experiences than I would have gotten otherwise. So it also showed me that I could do a lot of different careers rather than just strictly archaeology. So I could go into planning or be an architectural historian or do regulatory work, and also the work that historic preservation does. Like I've had the opportunity to work on National Park Service contracts, and I've been able to like do a lot of field trips, a lot of field trips around in DC and for local nonprofits. So it's just a really impressive breadth of information I've been able to access.
Yeah, sure. So I don't have a dual degree, but I did get my master's in planning. And when I got my master's in planning, what I realized was that there was a lot more research questions beyond that. So I'd always kind of pondered doing a PhD. And I made that decision when I was almost done with my master's in planning because I wanted to ask more questions and get more answers. And that's in fields like economics and political science and sociology, architecture, because urban planning is really the nexus of all of that stuff and how it interfaces with communities. So in that respect, I've been able to explore a lot of different academic fields and really shape my education and my career based on that.
For me, a dual degree of architecture and real estate development was really appealing to me coming to the school in the first place. That's why I chose Maryland, because I was interested in understanding more of the business side of architecture and the people who are really making more of the decisions in the architecture field, because they're the ones who own and operate these projects. So the experience so far has been great. It's doing just that, where it's teaching me about both sides. And now our thesis and capstone, the thesis on the architecture side and the capstone on the real estate development side, it really forces you to address both sides of the industry because it's one project that works together. So it's been more application in school right now because I haven't really started my full-time career yet. But I've really been able to address things that not all architects are thinking about in school, which has been really helpful and really grounding some of the architecture questions in reality and understanding how can you really apply some of these design ideas to the real world. And it is starting to come into play with my interviews that I'm having for full-time positions right now. I have a couple offers right now, and it's actually because they're very interested in the dual degree, and they pulled me that directly. And I think it's really going to have an impact on even the early years of my full-time position, having both of these degrees.
Yeah, I would mirror what Casey said about architecture and real estate development. I think it gives you, the dual degree gives you a better understanding of the industry as a whole. You're a little bit more grounded in finance and regulatory process and whatnot, whereas some other programs might be more theoretical in the architectural design challenges that they give you. And I would say that the biggest impact it has had on me is my internship before the internship I have now. I worked for a firm that was just an 8-person firm, and at that level, the founder and principal is interacting with developers at a really close range, and you even as an intern will start to need to know how to talk to developers and talk to them about things that they want to hear, and kind of be able to interface and say, like, yes, I know you need 210 units, but if we design it this way, it's going to do this and that. So it helps kind of give you the confidence if you want to stay on the architecture side, to be able to be a business person and talk to the developers and work together as a team, because you're going to have this like shared knowledge of the language and the main goals of each party.
So before we move to the live Q&A, and please feel free to start typing in questions, there's one more question that I want to ask you all, because this is something that's relevant to pretty much everybody that's watching, and that's financial aid. Everybody wants to go to graduate school, but a lot of people need to figure out how to pay for it, what options are available. So I'm going to ask each of you what financial aid opportunities are available, are you participating in them, and how are they helping you figure out your financial situations as well as your future career paths?
Okay, yes, very important financial aid. So for me, I started my first year anthropology provided me, gave me a teaching, like a TA position. And then second year, I worked with historic preservation to get a 10-hour research position. And that's been, being able to do that has really made it manageable to pay. And it's also important to note that if you're out of state and you have a research position, like even a 5-hour or 10-hour, you get in-state you pay in-state tuition. But if you have to take summer credits, you don't have that, you have to pay out of state. So it's you just go in knowing what you are expected to pay for. I was fortunate enough to be able to get almost there were a lot of people willing to help. You just have to be able to know who to ask.
And advocate for yourself.
And advocate, definitely. But historic preservation was very good at making sure I was taken care of.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I'll second what was just said about asking around for opportunities for graduate assistantships or teaching assistantships. Frequently, professors will have research projects where they'll have funding and they'll be able to offer you half-time tuition or half-time pay. I personally was lucky enough to have a full-time, which is a 20-hour-a-week graduate assistantship for my master's degree, and then also during my most of my PhD as well. So there's that, and then there's also, if you're a PhD student, there are a bunch of university-level fellowships that you can apply to and various awards. So you submit, to these basically contests, right, to get funding for your specific research package. And if you can prove that you've had a good track record, they'll give you additional money on top of that financial aid package that you're already getting. So I'd say there's a ton of opportunities financial aid at Maryland, especially in this program.
Yeah, I agree with the previous answers. I also hold a 10-hour TA position, and I am out of state, or I was out of state when I moved here. And that really, really reduces your tuition costs. So that was the reason I was able to come here in the first place. Without the TA position, I definitely would not have been able to afford that tuition on my own. On top of that, the architecture school does have some smaller scholarship opportunities each year that you can apply to, and I've received a few of those, which have really helped with the tuition. And then I mentioned the internship opportunity that I got. That was also a architecture school kind of competition application type deal, where there's several local firms that participate and they'll award you a scholarship plus the internship. So that really helps with, especially this last semester tuition wise.
Yeah, I would mirror what Casey was just saying. The architecture program does a pretty good job of advertising the merit scholarships at the graduate level that they offer, as well as like internship scholarship opportunities. And those are always a good opportunity to apply for those. And of course, the tuition remission and 10-hour-a-week GA positions and TA positions are also a great opportunity to help out.
They all said amazing things, and I appreciate your feedback. The only thing I want to add before we go to the live Q&A is there are a lot of different types of graduate assistantships available, meaning you could do teaching assistantships, you could do research assistantships, and they're available within the School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, but there are also graduate assistantships available outside of our school. So I just want to say that because if you're somebody that's looking into this, the amazing thing about GAs is they're really helpful. The tuition support is amazing, but mainly it's not just academics. One thing that our program really focuses on is preparing you for the real world, for your career, for working, and having the GA-ship while doing your degree or multiple dual degrees really helps because it'll give you real-time work experience while you're in grad school, and it will actually help you when you're applying for full-time jobs. Now that I've said that, we're going to move to the live question and answer section. So I'm going to go through the first question, but feel free to add on as we go. So if you add a certificate to your education, will it take longer to finish? I'm interested in an MArch and certificate in historic preservation.
I think I know, or you know the answer to this, right?
The certificates don't take you longer, is my understanding.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, we have a friend who did that, and she graduated in the same amount of time. I'm also doing a certificate, not historic preservation, but I got the urban design certificate. And that didn't add any time. You just have to work with the electives that you have in your schedule. It is harder to do with the dual degree because you have very limited free classes to take. But I was able to do it. So if you're doing it just with the Master of Architecture, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, if I were to be doing it as a dual degree in 2 different schools, it would take me extra time. But I think if you're in the architecture school, historic preservation one won't add more to you.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. And this is a question that was asked earlier to the program directors, but I actually think this is very relevant to you all as well. What academic background do you guys come from? Where are you coming from in life? Because one thing that we really want to emphasize is you can come from literally any background at any time. So I just wanted to ask all of you personally, where were you coming from and how did you find this program and get interested?
I was working as an archaeologist, and in order to do anything besides field work as an archaeologist, you have to have a master's degree. But I also thought maybe there's something more than just doing field work. So I decided to go into not just anthropology, which is what the traditional route is, but also into historic preservation, which really led into a lot of new things. So I was working in Virginia and actually doing this program. I've been doing a lot of work in Virginia and Maryland, which is very relevant to the field I was already interested in.
Yeah, so my background in undergrad was in economics. Years, and then I decided to focus on urban masters in that. I'd say that speaking for the planning program as a whole, people come from all sorts of backgrounds, people with degrees in English or anthropology, or science or business. Urban planning is a place where very few people will have the same background.
For me, I was on the track to go and get the professional degree in architecture. I had the pre-professional degree in architecture for my bachelor's degree. So there's the 2 paths for Masters of Architecture, Path A and Path B. So I was on the Path A track because I had the same background essentially.
I just want to clarify really quickly for people that are tuning in and missed the program director section. Well, Path A and Path B are the 2 different tracks to our MArch programs. So Path A is for somebody that already has an architecture background and a Bachelor of Science specifically, and Path B is for somebody that may be career changing or has a different type of degree. You got it.
I did my undergraduate studies here. So I went straight into the master's program here. So I don't have experience from another school, but I've kind of seen the evolution of our school, and it's been really neat to see all the studios that have been authored and whatnot. Been here for
You can see. So we have time for one more question. So if we don't get your question within the webinar now, like I said, email arch-admissions and it will be responded. But for the sake of everybody's time, I'm just going to go through one more question. And that's going to be, how is the experience as a teaching assistant and or doing research? So how did it impact you? How did you enjoy it?
Well, being a TA for anthropology was 20 hours. I don't know if it's 20 hours for architecture, but that was a lot. I had to run discussion sections and everything. And I don't want to be a professor, so I must say I actually enjoy the research position I have with historic preservation. I'm working on a National Park Service contract, which is really cool to see, and it's a great experience. And I get to go do field work, and I get to go to do research, and it's like what I will be doing in my career. So it's just a cool experience to have.
So I'd say that all of my graduate assistantships were research assistantships, not so I can't really speak to the teaching, but on the research side, I got to work with count the number of different professors I've done projects with. So it depends on who has a project, who wants to work with you first. Analysis, sometimes you might do literature. You might be helping them with presentations or even paper submit to journals. So it's really a great opportunity for collaboration as you start to meet different professors at the school.
For me, all of mine have been teaching assistantships, and they've all been the 10-hour assignment. I've done maybe 3 or 4 different classes, and they're all a different experience, really. So it's kind of hard to generalize, but it depends really which class you're assigned to as to how much you'll actually have to teach or lead. Some teaching positions that I've had have been purely grading. So it's just been a lot of back end work, and I didn't have to really go in front of the class at all. One of my teaching assistantships was very heavy in design, and I had my own group of 25 students that I had to lead the section. So that was a very different experience and kind of exposed me to what it would be to actually be a professor, which I was not interested in beforehand. It made me see the hard and the and like the good and the bad. Essentially, it can be very rewarding, but it is very hard, and it is time consuming. So doing the dual degree and doing a heavier teaching load position was a little bit of a struggle, but I don't regret doing it at all. 1, it helped me pay for my school, and 2, I think it's helpful just to see how I interact with students and being able to mentor students and help them. It actually was a pretty rewarding experience as well.
So I've done 1 semester teaching assistantship for one of the intro design classes. Then from then on, I've worked as a graduate assistant in the undergraduate advising office. And that's been really awesome to see all the undergrads and help them kind of navigate their way through the program, give them advice on classes and career options. So it's been pretty good to balance, and it's challenging sometimes, but it's, I think, worth it. So.
The only thing that I would add, because honestly, you all said wonderful things, are one of the great experiences about this is it will show you what you do and don't like. So we laugh, but you kind of have to try everything. And the reason that's really great is because you have all the opportunities and resources at your disposal. So for example, you can try teaching assistantship, and one of 2 things is going to happen. You're either going to love it, and maybe you want to do more teaching and working with students, or you're not going to love it so much, but you learn that experience. And now that you know you don't like it, you can figure out kind of what you want to choose in the future. It's nice to have all those options available and just to be able to try so many different things. For the sake of time, I am going to end it now. Before I have 2 quick updates, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I know the program directors aren't present at this moment, but we were so grateful for their panel and as well as their input. All the graduate students here now, thank you so much for all of your time. We really appreciate you being able to give your feedback. The only other thing that I want to say is that this is being recorded. So if you did not see the first part, or you want to share this with somebody else that you think might be interested, we will share the recording. It will be forthcoming. And if you are tuning into this webinar, we have your contact information. So we will definitely follow up with you. Like I said, that Arch-Admissions email is used for all undergrad and grad admissions requests. So feel free to ask a question. I'm just going to hammer in that the graduate application deadline is coming. We are in November, and this is very aptly timed because we have amazing graduate students but you can join us too. So the application portal is open. If you have any questions, like I said, email arch-admissions. If you have a question about the webinar, put webinar question in the subject line. If you have a question about application, just put application help in the subject line. I'm going to sign off now. Again, my name is Dana Coburn. I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Coordinator for the School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. Have a great end of lunch. Have a good Monday, and we'll see you soon.